The morning sun breaks over the ghats of Varanasi, casting golden light across waters that have witnessed 5,000 years of human searching. In a small temple library, beneath layers of dust and time, a scholar's trembling hands unfold a palm leaf manuscript, yellowed, fragile, written in Sanskrit so ancient that only a handful of living souls can decipher its meanings. The text speaks of energies that permeate all things, of vibrations that birth universes, of consciousness woven into the very fabric of existence itself. But this is not poetry. This is physics. Welcome to a mystery that refuses to stay buried. A story that begins in the Indus Valley thousands of years before the birth of modern science and ends in the quantum laboratories of today, where physicists scratch their heads in bewilderment, discovering that ancient Indian sages somehow knew what we're only now beginning to understand. This is the story of energy, not as we learned it in sterile classrooms, but as it was understood in a time when science and spirituality were one, when the mysteries of the universe were written not in equations, but in hymns, not in textbooks, but in the Vedas. Tonight, we journey into the hidden energy theories of ancient India, theories so sophisticated, so eerily accurate, that they challenge everything we thought we knew about the timeline of human knowledge. We will walk through temple complexes where sound could allegedly move stone. We will decode texts that describe the universe as pure vibration. We will stand at the intersection where ancient wisdom meets modern physics and ask the question that haunts every honest scholar who encounters these texts. How did they know? Close your eyes and travel back. Back beyond the Industrial Revolution, beyond the Renaissance, beyond the Roman Empire. Travel back 4,000 years to the banks of the Saraswati River, to a civilization that thrived when Europe was still wrapped in prehistoric darkness. Here, in the fertile plains of ancient India, a sophisticated culture emerged, one that would produce some of the most profound philosophical and scientific insights humanity has ever conceived. The Vedas, the oldest sacred texts of India, written between 1500 and 500 BCE, though oral tradition suggests they may stretch back even further into the mists of an almost mythical antiquity. To most, they are religious texts, hymns to gods, rituals for priests, the spiritual foundation of Hinduism. But to those who read deeper, who look beyond the metaphor and myth, the Vedas reveal something extraordinary, a comprehensive theory of energy that would not be matched in the West for thousands of years. Imagine the scene: ancient rishis, seers, sages, philosophers, sitting in meditation beneath vast starlit skies. No telescopes, no laboratories, no particle accelerators, just consciousness, turned inward, with an intensity and discipline that modern minds can barely fathom. And in those depths of meditation, they claim to perceive the fundamental nature of reality itself. They saw energy in forms we're only now beginning to detect. They understood connections we're only now beginning to prove. They called the universe Brahman, not a bearded deity sitting on a throne, but an infinite field of pure consciousness energy from which all things emerge and to which all things return. They describe this energy as having no beginning and no end, neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. Does this sound familiar? It should. It would be another 3,000 years before a patent clerk named Einstein would scribble EMC2 on a piece of paper and discover that energy and matter are interchangeable. But the Vedic sages went further. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, written roughly 800 BCE, we find this remarkable passage: from Brahman, Akasha is born. From Akasha, Vayu. From Vayu, Agni. From Agni, Apas. From Apas, Prithvi. Akasha, space, ether, the quantum field. Vayu, air, motion, energy. Agni, fire, transformation, radiation. Apas, water, fluidity, the liquid state of matter. Prithvi, earth, solidity, the material world. Here, in a text older than Plato, older than Socrates, is a cosmology that describes the universe emerging from an energy field, manifesting through stages of increasing density until it becomes the physical world we perceive. The ancient Indians called this cosmic energy prana, not just the breath, as it's often simplified in Western yoga classes, but the vital life force that animates all existence. Prana was understood to flow through everything, through the human body, through trees and stones, through planets and stars. It was the currency of existence itself, the fundamental vibration underlying all phenomena. The Vedic texts describe 5 types of prana, each responsible for different functions, circulating through channels called nadis. 72,000 of them mapped through the subtle body, millennia before Western medicine even understood the circulatory system. Consider the audacity of this worldview. At a time when most civilizations were still trying to figure out why the sun moved across the sky, the Vedic sages were proposing that the entire universe is a unified field of conscious energy, that this energy flows through all things in predictable patterns, and that by understanding and manipulating these energy flows, one could access extraordinary states of being and even influence physical reality. But perhaps the most revolutionary concept in Vedic thought was this: consciousness itself is a form of energy, not a byproduct of matter, not an emergent property of complex brains, but a fundamental force of the universe, perhaps the fundamental force. The Rig Veda, the oldest of the Vedic texts, declares ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti. Truth is one, the wise call it by many names. All of existence, all energy, all consciousness, arising from a single unified source. Enter the Rishi Kanada, a philosopher who lived around 600 BCE, roughly the same time as Buddha. While Greek philosophers were debating whether reality was made of water or fire, Kanada was proposing atomic theory. In his text, the Vaisheshika Sutras, he described matter as composed of paramanu, literally beyond the atom, indivisible particles that combine to form all physical objects. But here's where it gets interesting. Kanada stated that these atoms possessed a kind of inherent energy or vibration, that they were not static building blocks, but dynamic entities in constant motion. He described how these atoms combined and separated based on unseen forces, creating the diversity of the material world. 2,300 years before John Dalton, the Vedic understanding of energy wasn't just theoretical, it was applied. The science of Nada Brahma, the concept that the universe is fundamentally sound, vibration, frequency, led to sophisticated applications. The construction of certain temples, like the musical pillars of Hampi or the acoustic chambers of Belur, demonstrates knowledge of resonance frequencies and sound propagation that seems impossibly advanced for the time. Stories speak of mantras that could move objects, of sound frequencies that could heal or harm, of vibrations that could alter states of matter. Myth? Perhaps. But increasingly, modern science is discovering that sound and vibration do have profound effects on matter. Cymatics, the study of visible sound vibration, shows us how different frequencies create distinct geometric patterns in sand, water, and other mediums. Research into ultrasound has revolutionized medicine. We now know that everything at the quantum level is indeed vibration. The ancient declaration Om, described in the Mandukya Upanishad as the primordial sound from which all creation emanates, doesn't seem quite so mystical when we understand that the universe itself has a frequency, a cosmic background radiation humming at approximately 160.2 gigahertz, the echo of creation still reverberating through space-time. But if the ancient Indians possessed such sophisticated understanding of energy, why was it lost? Why did this knowledge not lead to an industrial revolution in India 2,000 years ago? This brings us to Act 2, and to the conflict at the heart of this mystery. The year is 1803. A British surgeon named John Playfair stands in the ruins of Konark Sun Temple in Odisha, staring up at intricately carved stone wheels, each one precisely designed to function as a sundial. He writes in his journal, "The Hindus possess considerable skill in the mechanical arts and a degree of astronomical knowledge which could not have been attained without long and diligent observation." It's a grudging admission undercut by the prevailing belief that ancient Indians were primitive peoples who needed Western civilization to rescue them from darkness. This was the great erasure, not by conquest alone, but by narrative, by the systematic dismissal of indigenous knowledge as superstition, by the rewriting of history to position European enlightenment as the sole source of scientific advancement. The Vedic energy theories, along with much of ancient Indian science, were buried beneath centuries of colonial scholarship that refused to take them seriously. But the conflict began even earlier, within India itself. By the medieval period, Vedic knowledge had begun its transformation from science into religion. The texts that once described energy flows and atomic structure became increasingly mystified, wrapped in layers of ritual and dogma. The empirical approach of the ancient Rishis, meditation as a tool of direct observation, gave way to orthodoxy and prescribed interpretation. The living investigation became dead tradition. Brahmins jealously guarded the Sanskrit texts, limiting access to a privileged few. Knowledge that was meant to liberate became knowledge that controlled. And so the energy theories of the Vedas gradually faded from active practice. The temples that demonstrated acoustic engineering became merely places of worship. The mathematical astronomy of the Surya Siddhanta became astrology. The sophisticated physics of the Upanishads became philosophy. The radical empiricism of consciousness research became religious dogma. The science became myth. But here's the paradox that haunts this story. Some of the knowledge didn't entirely disappear. It went underground. In the tantric traditions, hidden lineages of practitioners continued to work with energy in systematic ways. The chakra system, 7 primary energy centers aligned along the spine, was mapped with remarkable consistency across different schools and time periods. Kundalini Yoga described an energy coiled at the base of the spine, which, when awakened through specific practices, would rise through these centers, producing profound physiological and psychological effects. Modern researchers studying these practitioners with MRI machines and EEG monitors are finding that something is indeed happening. Measurable changes in brain activity, hormone levels, nervous system function. The ancient maps of subtle energy seem to correspond to something real, even if we don't yet have the instruments to measure it directly. Then came the quantum revolution, and everything changed. In 1924, a French physicist named Louis de Broglie proposed that particles could behave as waves. In 1927, Werner Heisenberg formulated his uncertainty principle. By the 1930s, quantum mechanics had shattered the neat clockwork universe of Newtonian physics, revealing a reality far stranger than anyone had imagined. A reality where observation affects outcome, where particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until measured, where everything is fundamentally interconnected through invisible fields of energy and information. And physicists began reading the Vedas, not for religious inspiration, but because something in those ancient texts rang true in the new quantum age. Erwin Schrödinger, one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics, was profoundly influenced by Vedantic philosophy. He kept a copy of the Upanishads on his desk. In his book, What is Life, he wrote, "The plurality that we perceive is only an appearance. It is not real." Vedantic philosophy has sought to clarify it by a number of analogies, one of the most attractive being the many-faceted crystal which, while showing hundreds of little pictures of what is in reality a single existent object, does not really multiply that object. Niels Bohr, another quantum pioneer, was so struck by the parallels between quantum mechanics and Eastern philosophy that he adopted the yin-yang symbol as part of his coat of arms when he was knighted. He recognized in the complementarity principle the idea that light behaves as both particle and wave, an echo of the Vedic understanding that reality transcends either-or categories, that opposites are unified at deeper levels. But the scientific establishment resisted. Oh, how it resisted. When physicists like Fritjof Capra began explicitly drawing connections between quantum physics and Vedic philosophy in books like The Tao of Physics, they were dismissed as New Age mystics, undermining the rigor of science with woolly Eastern spirituality. When researchers tried to study meditation and energy practices in laboratory settings, they struggled to get funding, to get published, to be taken seriously. The mechanistic paradigm, the belief that the universe is nothing but dead matter following deterministic laws, had too strong a grip. And yet, the evidence kept accumulating. Studies showed that meditation produced measurable changes in brain structure. Research into the placebo effect revealed that consciousness could directly influence healing in ways that transcended simple psychology. Experiments in quantum entanglement demonstrated that particles could remain connected across vast distances, instantaneously influencing each other in ways Einstein himself called spooky action at a distance. The hard, cold data kept pointing towards something the Vedic sages had declared thousands of years ago. Consciousness and energy are intimately connected, perhaps ultimately identical. The conflict intensified. On one side, reductionist materialists insisting that consciousness is merely brain chemistry, that energy is only measurable by instruments, that ancient texts are primitive speculation with no scientific value. On the other side, a growing number of physicists, neuroscientists, and consciousness researchers who found themselves unable to ignore the parallels, unable to dismiss the sophistication of Vedic thought, unable to shake the feeling that the ancients had glimpsed something true. The battle lines were drawn not over territory, but over epistemology, over how we know what we know. Is direct observation through heightened consciousness a valid method of investigation? Can subjective experience yield objective truth? Can ancient wisdom inform modern science? Or must we dismiss everything that came before the European Enlightenment as ignorant superstition? And in this conflict, something precious was at stake. Not just academic pride or philosophical correctness, but a possible key to humanity's future. Because if the Vedic energy theories are even partially correct, if consciousness truly is a fundamental force in the universe, if there truly are subtle energies that can be accessed and directed through specific practices, then we've been operating with an incomplete map of reality. Then there are technologies we haven't dreamed of, healing modalities we've dismissed, potentials for human development we've ignored. But proving it would require something revolutionary. The breakthrough came not from one dramatic discovery, but from 1,000 small confirmations, each one chipping away at the wall between ancient wisdom and modern science. It came when researchers at the HeartMath Institute discovered that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field extending several feet beyond the body, and that this field changes based on emotional state. Suddenly, the ancient concept of Hridaya, the heart as an energy center radiating outward, didn't seem so metaphorical. It came when scientists at Princeton's Global Consciousness Project found that random number generators around the world showed statistically significant deviations during major global events, as if collective human consciousness was somehow influencing quantum fluctuations. The Vedic idea of universal consciousness began to look less like religion and more like a testable hypothesis. It came when neuroscientist Rishi studied Tibetan monks who had spent decades in meditation and found that their brains produced gamma-wave patterns of a coherence and amplitude never before recorded. These weren't spiritual experiences. These were measurable biological events, occurring in practitioners who were deliberately working with internal energy systems described in ancient texts. It came when researchers studying DNA discovered that the molecule responds to human intention and emotion, coiling and uncoiling based on the mental state of subjects in proximity. The ancient teaching that consciousness can influence matter, that directed awareness can heal and transform, suddenly had a mechanism. The revelations kept coming. Physicists discovered zero-point energy, a quantum field of virtual particles constantly popping in and out of existence throughout supposedly empty space. The ancient Akasha, the primordial energy field from which all things emerge, had been found. Not with mantras and meditation, but with mathematics and observation. And the properties matched: infinite, underlying all matter, containing all potential forms. The language was different, but the discovery was the same. Researchers into cymatics, the study of sound vibration, created stunning visual patterns by running frequencies through sand, water, and other mediums. The geometric forms that emerged at specific frequencies were identical to the yantras, sacred geometric diagrams used in Vedic ritual. These weren't arbitrary religious symbols. They were visual representations of how sound organizes matter, how vibration creates form. The ancient declaration that sound is creative force, that the universe is fundamentally frequency, confirmed by laboratory experiment. The study of biophotons revealed that all living cells emit coherent light, ultra-weak photon emissions that appear to function as a communication system within and between organisms. The Vedic concept of the subtle body radiating tejas, light, luminosity, was no longer mysticism. It was biology. Quantum biologists discovered that processes like photosynthesis and bird migration rely on quantum coherence, particles maintaining quantum states at room temperature, something previously thought impossible. Life itself operates according to quantum principles. The ancient Indian understanding that consciousness and matter are not separate categories, that even the smallest living things possess awareness and energy, was being vindicated by cutting-edge science. And then came perhaps the most stunning revelation of all. In 2018, MIT physicist Max Tegmark proposed his consciousness as a state of matter theory, suggesting that consciousness might be an actual form of organization, like solid, liquid, or gas, that matter can take under certain conditions. He called it perceptronium. But strip away the modern terminology, and this is essentially the Vedic concept of chit, consciousness as a fundamental property of reality, capable of manifesting in different degrees of complexity and organization. A contemporary physicist at the world's most prestigious scientific institution had independently arrived at the same conclusion as sages sitting beneath banyan trees 3,000 years ago. The implications are staggering. If consciousness is fundamental rather than emergent, then everything we've built our scientific worldview upon, the assumption that mind arises from matter, that the universe is unconscious mechanism, collapses. We would need a new physics, one that incorporates consciousness as a primary variable. We would need new technologies based on the intentional direction of consciousness and energy. We would need new healing paradigms that work with subtle energy systems, rather than just biochemistry. We would need to seriously investigate practices that ancient texts describe, practices for raising energy, for expanding awareness, for accessing information through consciousness itself. Some scientists are already doing this work. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has conducted thousands of experiments demonstrating statistically significant effects of consciousness on matter. Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose have proposed that consciousness arises from quantum processes in microtubules within neurons, a theory that echoes Vedic descriptions of consciousness flowing through subtle channels in the body. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research into morphic resonance suggests that information can be transmitted across time and space through fields of collective memory, a concept remarkably similar to the Vedic Akashic records, the cosmic library of all experience. The resistance continues, of course. Old paradigms die hard, and careers are built on defending them. But the dam is breaking. More and more mainstream scientists are willing to say, even if tentatively, that perhaps the materialist worldview is incomplete. That perhaps consciousness is more than just brain activity. That perhaps the ancients, with their different methods of investigation, accessed genuine truths about the nature of reality. Consider what this means for you, listening to these words right now. You are not a bag of chemicals stumbling through a dead universe. You are a focal point of consciousness, radiating energy, connected at quantum levels to everything that exists. The breath you're breathing right now, the ancient rishis would call it prana, life force flowing through you, connecting you to the same energy that moves the stars. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, these are not just neurological events. They are energetic phenomena that ripple out into the world, influencing quantum fields, affecting others, shaping reality in subtle but real ways. The energy centers that Vedic texts describe, the chakras, these may not be literal physical organs, but they correspond to nerve plexuses and endocrine glands. And modern research shows that focused attention on these areas does produce measurable physiological changes. The ancient practices of pranayama, of working with breath and energy, have been shown to alter autonomic nervous system function, to reduce inflammation, to enhance immune response. This isn't magic. It's applied energy medicine 3,000 years old. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to explore the more controversial claims, there are documented cases of Tibetan monks generating sufficient body heat through tummo practice to dry wet sheets wrapped around them in sub-zero temperatures. There are yogis who have demonstrated extraordinary control over heart rate, metabolism, and pain response. There are martial artists who seem to sense attacks before they occur. Are these supernatural powers? Or are they natural capacities that emerge when one learns to consciously work with energy systems that most of us never develop? The ancient texts suggest that these are just the beginning, that there are levels of energy mastery that sound like science fiction. Siddhis, extraordinary abilities including telepathy, clairvoyance, even levitation and materialization. The rational mind rebels. But quantum physics tells us that matter is mostly empty space held together by forces, that observation affects reality, that particles can tunnel through barriers and exist in superposition. If consciousness can be trained to directly interact with these quantum processes, if there are techniques that were once widely known but have been lost, what might we be capable of? This is not an invitation to blind belief. The ancient texts themselves warn against taking anything on faith alone. The Kalama Sutta, though Buddhist rather than Vedic, captures the scientific spirit of ancient Indian thought. Do not believe something just because it is traditional, or because many people believe it, or because ancient texts say it. Verify through your own experience. The Rishis were empiricists. They mapped energy systems through direct observation in meditative states. They tested their theories through practice. They invited verification, replication, investigation. Modern science is finally accepting that invitation. And what we're discovering is that energy is not merely a physical quantity measured in joules and watts. Energy is the fundamental currency of existence. It flows through galaxies and through bodies. It manifests as matter and as consciousness. It can be directed by intention and shaped by awareness. The universe is not a clockwork mechanism, but a living, conscious, energetic system, and we are not separate from it. We are it, experiencing itself from infinite perspectives. The ancient Vedic texts declared, Tattvam asi, thou art that. You are not a small, separate self trapped in a dying body. You are the entire universe localized, the infinite pretending to be finite, the eternal playing in time. All the energy that has ever existed flows through you right now. You are, quite literally, made of stardust animated by the same consciousness that permeates all of existence. This is not mysticism, this is physics. Quantum physics, thermodynamics, cosmology, all pointing toward the same truth the ancient sages proclaimed: everything is energy. Energy is consciousness. Consciousness is all there is. The sun sets over the ghats of Varanasi, the same sun that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of philosophies, the endless seeking of humans trying to understand their place in the cosmos. In the temple library, the scholar carefully refolds the ancient palm leaf manuscript, his hands no longer trembling. He understands now. The text is not obsolete wisdom replaced by superior modern knowledge. It is a map to territories we've barely begun to explore. We stand at a threshold moment in human history. For the first time, ancient wisdom and modern science are converging, validating and enriching each other. The energy theories hidden in Vedic texts are no longer hidden. They're being rediscovered, translated into the language of physics, tested in laboratories, applied in clinics and workshops around the world. The old dichotomy between spirit and matter, between subjective and objective, between ancient and modern. It's dissolving. We're remembering something we once knew, seeing with fresh eyes what our ancestors saw clearly. But this story is not complete. It will not be complete until you become part of it. Because the ultimate test of these ancient energy theories is not in laboratories or academic journals. It's in your own direct experience. The Rishis mapped these territories through meditation, through disciplined exploration of consciousness. Those territories still exist. Those energies still flow. Those potentials still wait to be activated. Every breath you take is an opportunity to work with prana. Every moment of awareness is a chance to tap into the fundamental energy of existence. Every time you focus your intention, you're participating in the same creative process that births stars and galaxies. The knowledge was never truly lost. It was only sleeping, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to reclaim it, to integrate ancient wisdom with modern understanding, to step into a fuller realization of what we are and what we're capable of becoming. You are an energy being, living in an energy universe, connected to all that is through invisible threads of consciousness and quantum entanglement. The ancient texts don't ask you to believe this. They invite you to discover it for yourself, to sit in stillness and feel the prana moving through you, to observe how your thoughts and emotions ripple out as energetic phenomena, to experiment with the practices that seers have refined over millennia. Science is beginning to map what they discovered, but maps are not territory. The territory is your own being, your own consciousness, your own energy body, and it's vast beyond imagining. So as you go back to your life, carry this with you. You are not learning something new tonight. You're remembering something ancient. You're reconnecting with a heritage that belongs to all of humanity, a time when we understood ourselves as energy, when we saw the universe as alive, when we knew ourselves as expressions of a conscious cosmos. That understanding was encoded in the Vedas, preserved through millennia, and now being confirmed by our most advanced instruments. But it was always true. It's true right now as your heart beats and your lungs expand and electrical signals fire through your nervous system. It's true as quantum fields fluctuate within every cell of your body. It's true as your consciousness reads these words and transforms them into meaning, into feeling, into possibility. The energy theories of the ancient Vedas are not relics of the past. They are keys to the future. A future where we work consciously with the energies that create reality, where we access capacities that currently seem miraculous, where we remember ourselves as what we truly are, infinite consciousness playing in finite form, eternal energy dancing as temporary matter, the universe waking up to its own nature through billions of eyes. The lost blueprint has been found. It was never really lost. It was inside you all along, written in the very energy that gives you life, encoded in the consciousness that allows you to know anything at all. The ancient sages left us instructions. Modern science is confirming their accuracy. Now comes the most important part. Now comes your exploration, your verification, your awakening to the energy you are, the energy you're swimming in, the energy you've always been. The journey from unknown to discovery to revelation. It's not just the structure of this story. It's the arc of human consciousness itself. And we're just beginning. The mystery remains. But you are the mystery awakening to itself. And that, perhaps, is the deepest energy theory of all. In the silence between heartbeats, in the space between thoughts, in the stillness beneath all motion, the ancient energy flows. It has always been flowing. You have always been it, flowing. Welcome home to what you never left. Welcome to the endless energy of existence, expressing itself as you, through you, for the sheer joy of experiencing what it is to be alive, in this precise moment, in this exact form, in this beautiful, temporary, eternal now.